Hey, and welcome to TSOB. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are interested in investing or starting their own funds. We are Adam Anderson and Zach Eikenberry. Join us to get a behind-the-scenes look at the relationships between founding entrepreneurs and the VCs that invest in them. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Adam Anderson. We're sitting here with Zach Eikenberry. You know how we do. Dangerous, that's what I say. Remember that one time when we were over there in Thailand and you rode that zip line and then you jumped onto an elephant and then I saw you do that backflip and you caught a baby cheetah in your teeth, landed, nursed that cheetah back to health from your own bosom? I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, the ironic thing is I still take my pad thai like at a 2 out of 10.
That's right. It's all yeah, that's good. Well, hey,
It's okay for me. It's okay for me.
That's right. Kapuka. What? No, I'm probably saying it wrong. Anyway, yeah, I'm here in Vegas. Been here for the whole week at the Money Show. You're going to, where are you going next week? What conference are you hitting?
The All In Conference. Okay. It's a podcast of 4 founders and venture capitalists who during the pandemic started a podcast because they're all besties. And they have some really interesting perspectives between the 4 of them on almost every major event, but mostly economic and founder venture capital world news.
Wow. Well, that's great. That sounds like us, except not as good, maybe a little better. I don't know. You be the judge.
It's quickly become one of the fastest growing podcasts out there, period, full stop. And it's so at their conference here a week from today or yesterday, I will be in a room hanging out with Elon Musk and a few other folks. Yeah.
Well, your goal then is to not generate a restraining order. You're so don't be that guy. Well, never mind.
I was under the impression they had expiration dates, so I need to go check.
The restraining order. Oh, you have a couple in place. Like, call your lawyer and be like, "Hey, Buckingham, am I allowed near Elon yet?"
On a scale of 1 to he's cool. Like, is he cool yet?
Is he all right? Is this going to be okay? I love that. Yeah, I'm here doing 2 speaking gigs. I did a talk 2 days ago. I got a talk today. And, one of the things that really jumped out at me is it isn't the booth on the floor and I'm not manning that. Thank goodness I have pretty shoes. I don't want to stand on those things too long. But it's the people it's the sales guys who are helping investors find opportunities to invest in that are like the lifeblood of this event. And they are just some of the coolest, nicest people. Because what I found is that the guys who are authentically trying to find you a really cool and interesting deal, because they know that if they do, you're going to love it. You're going to come back to them. And I was talking to one of these guys last night. His entire outlook is that how you are showing up emotionally, like if you have head trash, if you got problems with your heart, not physical, like you're not like in the middle of having a heart attack, that's hard to close a deal like that. But he's saying, hey, if you are showing up as a good person, emotionally healthy, with somebody else's best interest in mind, it's completely different story, because you can still run your sales scripts, you can still run them through the funnel, but you can authentically guide them versus manipulate and try to get them to do something they didn't want to do. And so before we had lunch with these guys, and they grilled us for like 2.5 hours on all the details. And I was getting more and more excited because that showed they actually cared. You don't ask 2.5 hour worth of questions if you don't care. So I'm curious, because this is definitely we have money, we're coming to this thing to learn how to spend money, right? That's what this event's all about. But the event you're talking about seems to be something a little bit different. What's the difference, do you think, about what you're heading to? or maybe I should talk to you after you come back from it.
The reason I'm excited to go is the
Right.
theme of this year's conference is they invited a bunch of cool speakers and they gave them the prompt, what is the thing you would like to solve? Like, what's the thing? And so it's a group of people, and what I think is awesome about it is if it's like the podcast itself, it's going to be a zone of exploration and free speech, right? Where you're allowed to experiment out and process with people what you are trying to actually do and refining it better. And so what I like about this is I believe most of the room is going to be capital allocated, venture capitalists, private equity folks, perhaps even high net worth founders who they themselves are allocating capital into merger and acquisition activities, etc. And by them hearing these conversations, and what I'm hoping to get out of is hearing these conversations, I will have a better grasp on what does it mean to build out in the frontier and to allocate capital to solving real problems at a systemic level, also systematically, right? Those are two different ways, but like how we do that. And so that's what I get pretty excited about, is being a part of that conversation, so it's a different type of selfishness. I'm not going to a room of venture capitalists looking to pitch any of them on my idea. I'm going to a room of venture capitalists to learn about the way in which capital flows to the frontier. And that's what I want to do.
That's cool. That's cool. I just noticed that my voice on my phone is the one that's lighting up on the thing. So I'm really curious to see how this recording is going to go. But thankfully, I'm a smarty pants and I have it set in gallery view. So good luck for you. That is exciting. I love the idea that you get to pick what you want to pick. And so my assumption would be that all of these capital folks are going to leave that conference with bright new ideas of what they want to spend their money on. And you'll be in the room hearing all of that. And that's a unique opportunity to raise your hand and say, oh yeah, I'll help build that. Because,
because the edge to all this is building things that the market wants today. So this is not a series of TED Talks where somebody gets up and says, do you know how we can solve this thing? It's by doing this impossible task over here. But by the way, it's not so impossible if today all of us agree to do this one thing. Like that right there is not a call to action. But that's what TED Talk calls to action are, right? Very inspirational. And so what this is saying, like, here's the problem we want to solve, and here's how we think in the short term the market will respond and further accelerate our capital so that this domino lead to, so that's the systemic idea that there's this underlying unchangeable system, or not unchangeable. There's an underlying system as is, but then we can systematically go about it, right? And so there's I doubt it. Maybe there will be, but I don't think anybody in the room is going to stand up and say like, this is the nonprofit that will save the world, right? Or this is the policy that will save the world. I don't think anybody will say it that way. It's here's a problem worth solving, and how do we get there, and what are the, there's one of the guys on the podcast, his name's Freeberg. He's one of those PhD doctorate science, etc. And he was the guy who first, in a major way, raised the red flag about the Russian invasion affecting 20 to 25% of the world's food supply, because the Ukrainians missed their planting season. And then, then he went on to say, the issue here is not the fertilizer and the things coming out of Russia, because we can actually address those through some market conditions and focus. What we actually have is an issue with countries that have no food supply going into famine, and particularly in Africa. And so he said, people in the United States will not feel this. People in Ethiopia will die. And, that is an analysis coming from a venture capitalist talking about, so what do we do? And what does it mean for us to change shipping lanes and behavior so that we provide access from other high producing nations to low production nations? And then what does it mean to give them credit so that they can buy this food on debt? And how do we allocate credit to Ethiopia so that they can incentivize shipping lanes and ports to automate, to open up for greater access to food supply? So that's a systematic way to address a systemic issue, which is, food supply vulnerability among, modern day countries.
Yeah, the danger I hear though is if we create a process just like that, or we're like, just I'm following your example here, just teasing it out, and somebody from Ethiopia isn't in the room, then we are on dangerous waters, because I was hanging out with a gentleman from South Africa yesterday, and the culture of, here comes these people, be it China, be it Russia, be it the United States, yet again telling us how we should be running our countries, yet again building infrastructure and then putting us into debt so that we can't actually get out of debt because we're paying off this infrastructure that we didn't actually really ask for. It's complicated, right? And it goes back to what we talked about a couple episodes ago. The conscious capitalism. How do you use the power of VCs and the observations you just talked about, and then take ethical and good and helpful next steps for the people you're trying to help, while also generating outsized returns for your investors so that you can be sustainable and do it again and again and again. And so I'm really excited about what you said. And I'm also really excited to hear what's the plan. I mean,
the issue, the reason there's an issue today, then I'm picking on Ethiopia. I don't know the inner workings.
They're nice, they're good people,
but is they were not in the room previously, right? When it came to food supply security, they outsourced that to other countries, right? And they focused on other things, usually internal issues. And so when you have countries who consume more than they produce themselves, like, they're not in the room, right? And then furthermore, what culpability does the United States have when Ethiopia bases its reserve currency on the dollar and we blew up the dollar with inflation? So they now have a bunch of worthless dollars because we blew it up with trillions in spending and other Federal Reserve practices that for our own purposes, because we wanted a housing market that people could afford low interest loans. So we are morally culpable at some level, even though they're morally culpable for the results that's going to affect on their own people. Right. And so
then that's the good. So I love what you did there. Right. So there's nothing simple about any of these things. There are so many sides to all of this, and there's so many people involved that a easy answer might feel good and will probably cause harm. So I'm very interested to have a conversation with you next week or the week after when you get back, and be like, oh gosh, what actually happened? Is this a pitch meeting where they're like, well, we're going to do this. So I guess I should not project into the future. A lot of smart people are going to be in that room, and a lot of smart people in that room are going to understand how complex the game is. And so I think that'll be exciting to hear what folks are going to come up with, what folks are going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what there's another level of capital allocators, venture capital for shorthand, that, you first get started with a fund and you're just trying to pick 10 winners
Mhm.
and work them through, because the picking's the hard part. Like, you won't know for 5 to 10 years if you wasted 5 to 10 years of your time on a winner, right? Or loser. You just won't know. Like,
Are you talking about my first marriage? Come on, dude. That's too soon. That's too soon.
I thought I was
6 years,
disguising it
bro.
better than that.
Just 6 years, man.
Yeah,
You
but
get
like,
it.
you will not know whether or not you picked the right people for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But you pick, and then you get returns, and then other limited partners begin to play in your ecosystem, and you do something with that, and now you have the ability to what I'm going to say, control larger amounts of capital, so that you can look upstream to bigger and bigger problems, right? You're just trying to pick 10 companies to solve one problem for you as a fund, and you hope those companies solve a problem for the market, that they are seen as more valuable in 10 years with outsized returns, and they go do it. And then you can build up so that one day you're in a room and you're talking about the devaluation of a dollar, and you're talking about, hey, what does it mean to allocate this to another country? And then you get to bring your moral values about conscious capitalism and say, like, actually, guys, I think representation is going to be pretty important to solving this problem. And therefore, I would like representation from the end user, the product, the country, the stakeholder, whoever in. And you get to
But
say that.
but it's basic sales, right? Start with the customer in mind. Start with, and so, well, no, I was going to be flippant. It isn't basic sales. It's complex sales. So when I go into an enterprise and I want to sell a cybersecurity product, I've got multiple different buyers, right? I got the economic buyer who cares about how much it costs. I got the procurement officer who's trying to make sure that he's saving 2%, and I've got the user who actually needs what I do, and then I've got the coach who's trying to make me like figure all this stuff out. And with what you described, you've got so many different stakeholders, right? You have the people who are going to be impacted by what you do. You've got the people who are investing the money. You got the people who are trying to actually build these solutions. And you've got the crazy people in the middle trying to organize all that, called capital allocators. Man, that could have been a really cool soundbite. Still is. Rolling with it, baby. So talk to me about the role of VC versus PE in the world that you're describing, because in my head, venture capital is the seeds that we plant in order to have something new come up, and then private equity is how we curate and grow the things that have already been, planted and had their first few years of growth into something that has even more impact. So I think venture capital is where I go to innovate and have ideation and come up with cool new solutions. And private equity is where I go to make sure financial systems are working and stakeholders are staying in the game. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think that's a very succinct way to think about it. I would also think about it in terms of venture is aiming at the founder or the founding team, right? And the bet is there. PE's bet is on the team or the corporation, right? So as the founder moves to having an entire team and an infrastructure in place, PE says, okay, we're stepping in because we believe we can leverage a corporation towards some sort of end, where a venture is betting on the founders or is founder led, right? So you end up moving from a founder to a C-suite, and those two levers are different to pull when it comes to solving problems. And so I think it's one of the interesting anecdotes that I see out there when companies go only with venture all the way to IPO.
Right.
Most of the time, or without exception, they all have a charismatic founder all the way through, because they can't.
Is doomed.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right. So that's one of the things.
No, don't do that. You're great.
No. So, could we go venture all the way through? Yes, to an IPO or some sort of liquidity event. Yes, I believe so. I wouldn't do this if we didn't. However, I do have a set of skills around team building and cooperative leadership and C-suite work that lend itself very well to being the right target for private equity, right? And the private equity might still go to an IPO. Okay.
Yeah.
They have those things to pull too, but more than likely in the next 5 years, it'll be my goal to build a really strong C-suite, and not one that just listens to me all the time, but one that listens to our customers and other stakeholders, and we do right by our vision and our mission. And so I think that's an interesting distinction between venture capital and private equity and how they go about solving world problems.
Preach it. I am excited about, it seems like there is no hard and fast rule about how these two different tools are used, venture versus private equity. It seems like there are guidelines, and there are things that look similar, right? So VCs act in a similar kind of way and PE acts in a similar kind of way. But from a founder's point of view, they're looking at each one of these as just tools in the toolbox. And when it's time to build the next part of the company, you look and say, okay, I'm going to use venture to get started. I'm going to maybe use some debt here in the middle to bridge. I'm going to go back to venture. And then, you know what? Now we've got something going, and I'm building out C-suites, and I'm building out teams, and I'm taking a different route, and we're really growing. And what I need is a PE point of view, because now I'm doing more mergers and acquisitions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not necessarily that art, but it seems pretty right to me. I mean, I just love that the more financial tools we can give to entrepreneurs who are attempting to do good in the world and to create sustainable businesses, the better the whole world's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think on that note, a self-aware founder, CEO, entrepreneur is their self-awareness will be reflected in the tools they go to pick up.
Yeah.
Right. And so when that means there's no wrong way to do it. And now what's interesting is the biographies are written about the individual who might be the individual founder, the Ayn Rand hero, who they themselves, they pull only on the venture capital, and they own the venture capital. Venture capital does not own them, and they move their company through some sort of IPO or to some major valuation where they themselves are the champion of all things and own all the success of that company, right? Whatever it is they created. You get all these people. The Jeff Bezos gets credit for a bunch of things that his company did. He didn't figure out new types of warehouse automation with box shipping and 2-day shipping. He said, here's smart people, you go figure it out. Like his ingenuity was moving to Seattle so he could work around Microsoft people, and they got laid off. Like,
solid play, Jim. Well done.
Right? But like it worked. He knew Microsoft would lay people off because Microsoft was economically cyclical at the time. They've changed their model. New CEO is pretty brilliant at Microsoft, not putting down. But the when it comes to that founder narrative, like I think founders, including myself, tend to look at the Bezos, the Zuckerbergs, the Jack Dorseys of the world, the Elon Musks, the people who, even Peter Thiel, even though he's part of a team, like they themselves carried the vision and the weight, and they dictated to everybody around them.
Yeah.
Right. And to such an extent, either by brand or by infiltrate, you cannot pull that founder out of the company and it succeed. Right.
Yeah.
And there's another type of founder, and I find this just in the circles I run in. They want to build a team and solve a problem, and they don't have the need to solve all the problems or take credit for all the problem solutions. And so they don't build that founder brand, they build the company brand. And I think that right there is the underpinning of the private equity markets, is the humble mission focused CEO and entrepreneur who creates tremendous amount of value for their partners and clients and doesn't make the headline, isn't on 40 under 40 on cover of Forbes, right? They themselves are just people who show up every day, take straw, make it into gold. And the private equity people come along, and there's more money in private equity markets by a crazy magnitude. I don't remember what it was. Was it like, this year at the Money Show? Is it like 40x? Like there's 40
math.
times.
There's definitely math. Yeah, you just use math. There's lots of math going on here.
We should probably have an Excel sheet open for this conversation.
So I already have one. It's tattooed on my. You can't see it because I held up the wrong forearm.
Yeah. So I think I don't know what your thoughts are about the mythos around founders, but that's one of the things I see with venture and PE differences as well.
So when I started my first company, ran for 13 years, fired myself after 10, had somebody else run it for the last 3 years, it was a different company. Right? I had employees who I brought in who were very, very loyal to me, loved working for me. And then when other people took over, dissatisfaction, lack of productivity, the whole thing, how I handed off was garbage. I take full responsibility for the fact that this was my first rodeo, my first time firing myself, and the first time, putting an executive team together. And I did the best job I could, Zach. I did the best job I could. But I had a lot of problems because I was the rock star, quote unquote, founder. And the customers only wanted to talk to me and blah, blah, blah. And if we were good, it was because of me. And if we were not, it was because of me. And I thought that by taking full ownership of all that, and every single thing was, up to me, even if I wasn't doing it, I had an opinion on it. I thought that was the way to do things. And it prevented us from growing. It stroked my ego. I felt really important. And then I had this big shock where when I did fire myself and the phone stopped ringing, I felt completely worthless because I wrapped my entire identity up in being the CEO of Palmetto Security Group and being the owner of Palmetto Security Group. And when somebody else did it, I'm like, crap. Why isn't anybody calling me? How come I'm not being invited to the cool conferences? How come I'm not having any fun? And so, I don't think there's a wrong answer, but I would rather bet on a system stewarded by a CEO who knows how to take care of people and build teams to get things done than bet on the reputation of a rock star founder. Like one of the other general partners in Anzus Capital is interviewing a CEO for a new position for one of the companies we're looking at that we've deployed some capital into. And it's a startup-ish. It's a private equity deal, not a venture deal. And this cat is asking for like $900K in salary. Yeah, I saw your eyebrows go, right? And we're like, dude, you see the spreadsheets. You know the amount of money this thing is throwing off. You know that's not a non-starter. And, I'm sitting there, we're having a drink with the other GP, and it's like, I've hired so many very, very expensive people who accomplished amazing things, and I didn't get the team that came with them. And I brought this rock star, and I wasted a year watching them flounder because they were effective because they built teams, and they confused the fact that their team was amazing with the fact that maybe there was something special about them. And so I'm worth $900K is true if you bring the people who you have built. If the machine you have built, if the system you have built with your leadership, now you're worth $900K because that's worth $900K. So,
well, or they're telling you, right, the 10X principle. I can do 9 million worth of value to this company. And I can do that through my team. So if there's not a path between that person and the team they're building with their systems to a $9 million return for 1 year of work, if 900K is an annual, then what are we talking about?
Well, that is the pitch. That this guy is rolling in saying, I've seen what this thing can do. I know how to do this. I've done this before. I will do A, B, C, and I'll do X, Y, Z, and I will earn that 900K. And
sure, they have to say that.
Hey, I know. And I'm like, cool, bud, but you won't know for a long time if the guy's actually doing the work he says he's going to be able to do. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's all the human side of this equation. Who is doing what? Who are they? What are, and past success doesn't predict future success. And I like how careful you are with your team building. You take a long time to hire somebody. You spend a lot of time thinking and talking about it. It's it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the taking a long time is not meant to. Let me rephrase this. I would take a shorter amount of time if I could, but there are so many lessons and things that I've experienced in the past that come to bear that when looking at a candidate, that my list of boxes to check with anybody has gone from, oh, here's the core 5 or 10 things I need, to 50 to 100 mental notes that I need to feel comfortable with somebody in a particular role on the team. And I can outsource some of those. I'm not checking for all of them. I make sure the process pulls it in, or somebody else is doing the interview and they give me feedback. But mentally, I still carry that around with me.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's a good thing. Yeah. Like I said, I would hire faster if I knew how to, but I'm hiring slower in order to really make sure that I understand and set that person up for success. They're like, I'm hiring salespeople right now. The sales labor market for experienced software folks is crazy. I'll give you, there's a young man who came to us with 1 year experience at a car rental company doing sales and is getting into software sales. Our posted position is the on-track earnings for this role are $80,000 for year one, 48 base, 32 in commission. That's our split. I have it all mapped out for all the quota to hit and carry, how long that will work, why I believe they'll do at least 80, right? He showed up at an interview with an offer in hand. This kid's 23. Offer in hand for 120 software, 120K package from a SaaS company out of California. Doesn't have to move. His base is going to be 60. So it's a 50-50. And I step back and I say and he's like, oh, and I need to decide in the next 2 days. I got to get back to him. This offer expires. And I'm taken back. I'm like, if I could hire you faster, I would. I mean, but also all these check boxes I got to go through, this whole process I got to figure out to make sure, I have to go back and rewrite quotas, consider my pricing arrangement with my customers. I have to do all this to be able to support account executives coming in at 120. And I don't think I can in time. And so I pass and wish them luck. And then I take this little sinking feeling in my heart saying oh my goodness, are 23-year-olds without law degrees getting 120K year one? Is that
stop entrepreneuring?
Yeah, no doubt. Why am I the CEO of if I can go out and get 900K somewhere?
What? This is, I always tell people, if you want to make money, don't start a business.
Yeah, just go sell the founder that you're worth 900K.
That's
And they might be. They might be. I'm
I
just
bet
saying.
they are. I bet they are. But I had an emotional reaction because of my previous track record hiring expensive people from large organizations that were only good because of their teams. Just like you have past track records of hiring amazing rock stars and putting into systems that were not ready and they could not succeed. So now you've built this amazing system. It works. We know that we're closing business. We know that things growing, and you're looking for salespeople who are amazing and fit into the system. And this kid didn't fit into the system. And yet, we're always curious: did we do it right? Are we still? Is this the right answer? Boom, boom, boom. And so new data points come in. And you're like, am I running the business the right way? Is my sales model the right sales model? Am I working on antiquated assumptions that people are excited about 80K? And who's excited about 80K? And what story do I need to tell?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Oh, and by the way, pertinent to this discussion, since valuations are suppressed right now in advance of some sort of downturn or expected downturn, it's, anticipate things. And so they anticipate a downturn when it comes to technology stocks, etc. That doesn't mean tech's not going to be on sale. It's going to go great. It's going to rebound out even faster. But where we stand right now today, that means all these employees who are part of this reshuffling going on across a number of corporations, they are discounting highly their equity packages. They're like, oh, but at the previous company, I was told that it was worth 10x, and today it's worth 2x. So when you show up and say, hey, you get options in this cool little founding startup company.
Yeah. Now give me cash.
Don't care. And you're like, but I didn't promise you the world like Meta did. And they're like, don't care. Equity's equity to me, and it's worthless. So I'm going to need cash, and I got to keep up with 8% inflation anyway. So gimme. And so
gimme. Well,
you're at the money show. That's all you're here in Vegas, right?
Gimme. I hear inflation. That's, and then 1,000 interesting ideas around. I mean, it's interesting when you hear, high net worth people talk about what it is that they are seeing in the world and how that affects them, and their opinions about what's happening with real estate. And what I have found is that some of these people are very, very smart. We'll give them that. But none of them are smarter than anybody else on the planet, really. I mean, what I'm trying to say is they're normal human beings who are in the right place at the right time, got lucky, and then did a hell of a lot of hard work. So we do not discount the hard work. But they don't know what's going on either, man. Nobody knows. Everyone is like, what's the latest thing? How do I do this thing? Right. It's
I imagine high net worth people, this is my guess, you're at the money show, you can tell me, their portfolios are largely positive, as a net positive, because between their limited asset holdings, real estate and like gold and certain bonds and art and other things that are in demand, that right there outpaces the losses they see on the equity drops in their exposure to public markets. But the real thing that's just eating them out of the bottom, that's keeping them despair, is inflation. It's just inflation is a tax on the high net worth. I mean, it's a tax on everybody, don't get me wrong. And the people, call it at the bottom, whatever that means, those are the people that are just getting devastated and wiped out, right? Like, just all expendable income's going to gas. It's just doesn't matter. Like, disposable income is going to gas if they want to get to work. That doesn't matter. Now they're breaking even. They can't afford daycare and now the gas, etc. So don't get me wrong. This is a different set of problems. But when you have your capital holders very shaky and on the edge, like, I don't know, maybe you see this, like, is this so international at the money show that everybody's affected equally, so therefore there's nobody coming after the US empire? Or are we starting to see signs where the capital in the US might start losing ground to the Chinas of the world, and we're in trouble?
No, the overarching feeling is the U.S. is still where to do business because it's at least predictable and there's controls, right? There, the very things that we don't like about the SEC are the very things that we like about the SEC, right? So the most people, South America was most of these conversations in South America still want to do business in the U.S. because U.S. has investors and capital markets and financial systems that are geared for this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's yeah, I don't know the real answer to that, but I will tell you one of the observations I have is that the fear or the reason that most people are here at this conference is because they have successful things happening right now, but they see those things at risk. They have real estate plays, they have, blah, 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 whatever it is. And because of the volatility of what's happening, they are looking for places to put some of the resources that they have in those vehicles. And so they're looking for new vehicles to spread out their risk, to say, we're going to still leave some stuff in real estate, but probably need to bet on this e-commerce thing. I probably need to bet on this SASS thing. I probably need to bet on what is a crypto, right? I had a lovely conversation with a gentleman named Art. Art is 82. Art sat through my entire presentation on e-com roll-ups. And I use real estate as a metaphor. You buy a building, you have 80 units, you rent those units, and that's great. And then you buy an e-com store, but there's unlimited amount of units you get. So I did this elegant metaphor. I have a standing ovation was going to happen, but I was in the middle of the talk and they didn't want to disrupt me. So I told it was no, not yet. And Art comes up after. And he thought the whole point of what I was saying is I was trying to raise money to buy a building. And bless his heart, just trying to explain it. He's like, well, okay, let me ask the question in a different way. Because remember, I'm talking about an e-com store. What's the square footage of the store? It's like, it's square footage is the internet, bro. I don't know. We're talking data centers. What do you want? And eventually he's like, oh, you're talking about the internet. It's like, yes, sir. Yes, I am. This is an internet play. That's a thing. You can invest money in the internet. That'd be fun. We should start an ETF or something like that for internet.
So I think if I was a high net worth individual right now, the options get scary because they move into speculation, right? Which is the space that you're in between precious resources and crypto right now. And so you're having to learn about NFTs, decentralized finance. You're having to learn about cryptocurrencies and tokens, and you're caught up, but that's all speculation.
Yeah.
Right? The first wave of crypto buyers have already got their return. The second wave has lost tremendous amounts of value in the last month.
Yeah.
They're just bleeding out.
Yeah, there's a lot of sad people staring at their phones every morning.
The second wave people, and I say second wave, I'm talking 2018. Last 4 years, and some of these people bet big.
Well,
they took.
Go ahead. People are asking me how much crypto I have. I have zero crypto. I invest in the I invest in the companies that run the infrastructure of the crypto world, not in the coins themselves. That's how I have decided I'm approaching this. So I want the boring stuff. I want the, bet on, picks and shovels, man. Picks and shovels. I'm not betting on the gold rush. I'm betting on picks and shovels.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, somewhere around there, right? And but if you're a high net worth individual, here's where I'm going with all this is your only road between pure speculation and predictable returns is going to be in technologies. And those tech are going to revolve around energy tech, food tech, health tech, and business efficiency finance tech, right?
Yeah.
Like those are your plays. And the business efficiency finance tech is, I mean, arguably cybersecurity is nestled in under fintech, where like we're there to protect the financial interest of organizations. And so you got these four things, and now you've got to have venture go out and find founders and ideas. And so it cuts towards speculation, but with the pathway in the road that's proven that one day these companies, if they're successful, are regulated by the SEC. Right?
That's right. That's right. Well, that's good stuff, dude. I love where you're heading with a lot of this. I'm going to give you my hot take of what I think that I like. What I have heard you say is that there are amazing and elegant shifts happening right now between, where does speculation land? I'm really going to be focusing on the last thing you just said, because that's the thing that kind of made me pause. The idea that moving your resources from something that is no longer safe to something that you hope is safer with speculation. And by moving it towards something that is the lowest risk speculation, your hypothesis is tech. And inside of tech, because tech is the baseline of all that we do, I can't remember who said software is going to eat the world, right? Tech is going to be everywhere. And so moving into a sure speculation, because it's venture or it's early stage PE or it's mergers and acquisitions or whatever, but in a tech space around that. And it's not just creating the tech, but it's the e-coms, it's the things that roll on tech, it's the direction economies are going. To me, that's the safest kind of speculation you can do to get the kind of returns that you're looking for that will offset losses from inflation, but offset losses from deteriorating crypto, or maybe not, bro. I don't know how much you put in. Maybe no one can save you with your deteriorating crypto. Good luck. But the idea that it's our job as, fund controllers to bring highest quality possible speculation vehicles to investors in order to help them preserve and grow wealth so they can go do good in the world. I love that. So, yeah, good on you, man.
Yeah, my hot take is going to go back to something you said earlier in our time together. And it has to do with the amount of energy that it takes to be a conscious capitalist. So on what you just said, that there is this tremendous amount of forces at play that will push speculation into predictable outcomes, but not so predictable that they lose value quicker than inflation rises, right? They have to hit a sweet spot, a window. But when you hit that window, nothing changes about the outliers unless we're conscious about our capitalism and our allocation. So when we find something that grows faster than inflation, but does not introduce risk of speculation, when we hit that window, we have to go in with eyes open and to talk about things like representation, or like you said, doing good in your hot take. And so that's where my head's at, and where I'm going to take and chew on further.
Well, good. Use that wisdom next week when you are hanging out with Elon Musk and generating new restraining orders, as you do.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think you can just scratch out the dates and maybe the names and just add new ones. Like, I think it's the same form.
You just bring a whole bunch of them and be like, if this is too much, sign here. I mean, We've already got them approved.
By the way, I have a company that automates restraining orders. It's a great way introduce efficiencies into your, your interactions with people.
Your network curation. I have a network curation tool that generates autonomous and AI-driven machine learning.
It uses AI and ML to anticipate the people that you don't want in your life.
Proactively sends a restraining order.
We can read if you've swiped left on Tinder, but that person keeps stalking you on Instagram, we can preemptively get you a restraining order.
That started fun and then it got dark, and now it's So, two stones, one bird, the podcast. Find us on LinkedIn. That's where we're going to be doing this party for the next little while. And Zach, it's always fun to hang out with you, buddy.
Good to hang out with you.
Hey, and thanks for joining us for the TSOB podcast. Find us on LinkedIn and give us your hot take. The whole reason we're doing this is to get access to better conversations that help us up our game. And if you have something you want to share, we want to hear about it. Find us on the TSOB LinkedIn group and jump in with 2 feet. We can't wait to chat.